The alien princess questioned, "Can you protect me, human?" She had no idea about his strength. It was old, forgotten, and used only by humans for small supply runs and emergency repairs. No alien empire cared about this place. That was why the escape pod came here. The alarms rang suddenly through the metal halls. Red lights flashed. A single message appeared on every screen. Unknown vessel detected inside the command deck. A human officer looked up in surprise. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in worn combat armor. His name was Elias Kane, a soldier from Earth's outer colonies. He had seen battles. He had seen death, but an unknown vessel this far out meant trouble. "Scan it," he said calmly. The station AI answered, "Life signs detected. One occupant, severe injuries." Elias frowned. "Prepare medical bay." The escape pod hit the docking bay with a loud metallic sound. Steam filled the room as the hatch slowly opened. Inside lay someone not human. She had silver blue skin, long white hair, and eyes that glowed faintly like starlight. Strange markings covered her armor, torn and burned from battle. Even injured, she carried herself like royalty. She was unconscious but alive. Elias stepped forward carefully. He had seen many alien species before, but not this one. "Get a med team," he ordered. As the doctors rushed in, the AI whispered in his ear, "Identity unknown. Energy readings suggest royal genetic signature. Possible high-value target." Elias looked down at her face. Something about her expression told him she had seen war and lost. Hours later, the alien princess woke up to the sound of machines beeping softly. Her eyes opened slowly. The first thing she saw was a human standing near the wall, arms crossed, silent as stone. She stiffened instantly. Her hand moved to where her weapon should have been. Nothing. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her body. She hissed softly. The human stepped forward. "Easy," he said in a calm, low voice. "You're safe, you were injured." She stared at him with suspicion. "A human of all creatures. You are the one who captured me?" she asked, her voice cold and sharp. "No," Elias replied. "We rescued you," she laughed weakly. "Humans do not rescue, you trade, you hide, you beg." He did not react to the insult. "You were drifting in open space," he said. "Another hour and you would have been dead." She studied him closely now. His armor was old. His face had scars. His eyes were tired but steady. "You expect gratitude?" she asked. "No," he replied, "only honesty." She remained silent for a moment, then her eyes narrowed. "They are coming for me." Elias already knew. "Who?" he asked. "The Zarathi Empire," she said quietly. "And when they arrive, this station will burn." The truth comes out in the command room. The situation became clear. The alien woman was Princess Valera, last heir of the Ithari Dominion, an ancient race nearly wiped out by the Zarathi war fleets. Her people were known for their intelligence and energy manipulation. They were also hunted to extinction. Elias listened as she explained everything. "They destroyed our worlds," she said, "hunted us like animals. I escaped only because my guards sacrificed themselves." Her voice cracked for just a moment before she regained control. "If they find me," she continued, "they will kill everyone on this station." The room went quiet. Some of the human crew looked afraid. The Zarathi were known across the galaxy. Massive warriors, advanced weapons, no mercy. One officer whispered, "We should hand her over." The princess turned sharply. "You would doom yourselves either way." Elias raised a hand. "Enough." He looked at the holographic map. "The Zarathi ships would arrive within hours." "Evacuation isn't possible," he said. "We don't have the fuel." The princess folded her arms, her eyes cold. "Then you will die," she said simply, "as humans always do when facing true power." Elias turned to her. "Maybe," he said, "but not today." She studied him with disbelief. Then she asked the question that would echo through history. "Can you protect me, human?" The room went silent. Every eye turned to Elias. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to a weapons locker and began checking equipment. Only after that did he speak. "You stay behind me," he said, "and you'll live." She stared at him. "That is not an answer." He looked her straight in the eyes. "It's the only one you need." The first alarm minutes later, long-range sensors screamed. ZERATHI fleet detected 3 ships, then 5, then 12. The station shook as energy signatures locked on. Panic spread. The princess clenched her fists. "It is over." Elias turned to the crew. "Battle stations." Someone shouted, "We can't fight that." Elias grabbed his rifle and said calmly, "We're not fighting them head-on." The station lights dimmed as power rerouted. Defense turrets activated. Corridors sealed. The human crew moved with discipline. The princess watched, confused. "These are not warriors," she whispered. "They are workers." Elias overheard her. "Humans are many things," he said, "but when cornered we become soldiers." The first enemy boarding craft slammed into the hull. Metal screamed. Explosions echoed through the station. The Zerathi were coming. The first encounter, the blast doors burst open. Tall, armored figures stormed inside, 4 meters tall, glowing red eyes, weapons humming with power. The princess froze. She had seen these monsters destroy cities. Elias stepped forward. "Stay behind me," he said again. The Zerathi fired. Elias rolled to the side, dragging her with him as plasma burned the wall behind them. He fired back, not wildly but carefully. Each shot struck joints, weak points, armor seams. One Zerathi fell, then another. The third roared and charged. Elias threw a grenade, then pulled the princess down as the explosion shook the hall. Smoke filled the air. Silence followed. When it cleared, 3 enemy soldiers lay destroyed. The princess stared. Her hands trembled. That is impossible." Elias stood, bleeding slightly from his arm. "Welcome to human combat," he said. More alarms rang. More enemies were coming. The moment of realization as they moved through the corridors, the princess spoke quietly. "Why do you fight like this?" Elias didn't slow down. "Because we have to." "You are outmatched," she said. "Outgunned," he nodded. "Always have been." She looked at him, confused. "Then how are you still alive?" He stopped and turned to her. His eyes were calm, steady. "Because humans don't quit," he said. "We adapt, we endure. And when someone needs protecting, we become something else." The station shook again. Enemy forces were closing in. The princess felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. She looked at the human before her. For the first time, her question changed. Not "Can he protect me?" but what kind of being stands against the darkness without fear? The station shook again. Metal groaned like a wounded animal as another enemy ship locked onto Outpost K. Warning lights flashed red across every corridor. Smoke drifted through the air, and the sound of distant explosions echoed like thunder. Princess Valera stood frozen. She had seen battles before. She had seen planets burn. But she had never seen anyone stand in the middle of chaos the way the human did. Elias Kane moved forward calmly, his rifle steady in his hands. "Stay close," he told her. She wanted to argue. She wanted to say he was foolish. That humans were weak. That resistance was pointless. But something in his voice stopped her. It was not fear. It was certainty. The enemy advances. The corridor ahead exploded open. Zerathi soldiers poured in, massive, armored, their glowing weapons humming with deadly energy. They moved with brutal precision, scanning for targets. Valera felt her breath catch. "These are elite hunters," she whispered. "They never fail." Elias knelt behind a broken wall and checked his weapon. Then today they learned something new. He motioned for her to stay down. The first Zerathi stepped forward. Elias fired. The shot hit the creature's knee joint, sending it crashing to the floor. Before the others could react, he rolled to the side and fired again. Short bursts, clean and controlled. 2 more fell. The rest opened fire. The hallway turned into a storm of energy bolts. Elias pulled Valera behind a metal crate as plasma burned the wall behind them. "You're injured," she said, noticing blood running down his arm. He glanced at it. "Not bad enough." She stared at him. Any other species would be screaming, begging, or retreating. This human kept fighting. A princess learns fear. The Zarathi advanced slowly, now cautious. They had expected weak prey. Instead, they found resistance. One of them roared in anger and charged. Elias waited. At the last second, he activated a floor charge he had planted earlier. The explosion flipped the massive alien onto its back. Elias didn't hesitate. He ran forward and fired at close range. The creature fell silent. Valera felt her knees weaken. "This is madness," she whispered. "You cannot win." Elias reloaded calmly. "We don't need to win," he said. "We just need to survive." Another explosion rocked the station. Overhead, a warning voice echoed. "Hull breach detected. Deck 6 compromised." The Zarathi were cutting through the station. Valera looked around, fear rising in her chest. "They will overwhelm you," she said. "You should surrender me. It is logical." Elias stopped walking. Slowly he turned to her. "No." His voice was quiet but unbreakable. "I don't trade lives." She stared at him. "You would die for a stranger," he nodded once. "That's kind of our thing." The truth about humans: they moved through a narrow corridor, emergency lights flickering. As they ran, Valera asked the question burning in her mind. "Why do humans fight like this?" she asked. "You are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced." Elias ducked into cover, firing a shot behind him. "Because we had to be," he replied. He paused, then continued. "Earth is not a gentle world. Storms, predators, disasters, wars. We survived by adapting, by helping each other, by refusing to quit." They reached a locked door. Elias slammed his fist into the control panel, forcing it open. "We learned early," he said, "that if we give up, we die." The words hit her harder than any weapon. She had been raised among power and protection. Humans had been raised among danger. The trap they entered: a wide cargo bay, too wide, too quiet. Elias stopped instantly. "Down!" he shouted. Valera dropped as energy bolts tore through the air where she had been standing. Zarathi soldiers poured in from all sides. They were surrounded. Elias fired until his weapon clicked empty. Then he drew a smaller sidearm. One enemy fell, then another. But there were too many. A blast struck Elias in the side, throwing him against a wall. He groaned, struggling to stand. Valera screamed his name. She rushed toward him without thinking. A Zarathi raised its weapon at her. Without hesitation, Elias pushed himself up and stepped between them. The blast hit him square in the chest. He flew backward, crashing to the floor. Everything went silent. Valera's heart stopped. "Elias," she cried. The Zarathi advanced. Slow, confident, victorious. The human stands again, then movement. Elias coughed. Blood stained his armor. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself to his knees. The Zarathi paused. No creature should have survived that hit, but he did. Valera watched in disbelief as he stood, shaking, bleeding, still standing. "You should be dead," one of the Zarathi growled. Elias lifted his head. "Yeah," he said hoarsely, "we get that a lot." He activated something on his wrist. The station lights went dark. Emergency power kicked in, and then explosions erupted across the cargo bay. Hidden charges detonated. The floor collapsed beneath the Zarathi. Screams filled the air. Elias grabbed Valera's hand and ran. The escape: they sprinted through collapsing corridors as fire spread behind them. Valera could barely keep up. "You planned this," she shouted. Elias nodded. "Always plan for worst case." They reached an escape lift. Elias slammed the button. The doors closed just as energy blasts struck them. The lift dropped fast. Silence filled the small space. Valera stared at him. His armor was damaged, his face pale. Yet he was smiling faintly. "You're insane," she said. "Maybe," he replied, "but you're alive." The lift stopped. The doors opened to a secure chamber deep inside the station. They were safe for now. Valera finally collapsed against the wall. Her legs gave out. Elias caught her before she hit the floor. She looked up at him, eyes filled with emotion she didn't understand. "You could have run," she whispered. He shook his head. "No one gets left behind." A new understanding. Minutes passed in silence. The station still shook above them, but the immediate danger had passed. Valera looked at Elias differently now, not as a weak human, not as a guard, but as something rare. "Back home," she said softly, "we believe strength comes from power." Elias sat beside her. "On Earth," he replied, "we believe strength comes from choice." She looked confused. He met her gaze. The choice to stand, the choice to protect, even when it costs everything. Her voice trembled. "Then I was wrong about humans." He gave a tired smile. "Happens a lot." Ending of Part 2. Alarms echoed again in the distance. The Zarathi were not finished, but something had changed. For the first time in her life, Princess Valera felt safe. Not because of walls, not because of soldiers, but because one human stood between her and the darkness. And she finally understood the truth. Humans were not the strongest race in the galaxy. They were the most stubborn, and that made them unstoppable. The deep hum of Outpost K vibrated through every metal beam. Smoke hung in the corridors like a dark fog, and fires flared in patches where energy blasts had torn through walls. The station's hull had been breached in several places, and alarms blared nonstop. Yet through the chaos, Elias Kane moved with precision. His breathing was steady. His eyes scanned every shadow. Princess Valera followed closely, still in disbelief at the human who refused to break, who refused to cower, who refused to give up even when the world seemed lost. "They will overrun us," she whispered almost to herself. Elias did not look at her. "Not today," he said. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him the Zarathi were unstoppable, that no human could survive the fury of their fleet. But every time she opened her mouth, another display of his skill stopped her words. The first counterattack through the station's intercom, a familiar voice crackled. "Bridge to Kane. Report." Elias pressed the comm. "We're holding, but they've breached Deck 7. We need a path to the reactor core. I can lure them in there." The bridge officer hesitated. "That area, it's dangerous. The hull is unstable. You could die." Elias' jaw tightened. "Better me than her. Move civilians to the lower bunkers." Valera watched him, her heart racing. Humans often boasted about courage. They often claimed they would fight no matter the odds, but this was different. He didn't boast. He acted, and he was bleeding. A narrow hallway, the hallway to Deck 7, was barely wide enough for two people. The walls were scorched black from energy blasts, and the floor vibrated with distant explosions. Zarathi soldiers approached, their heavy boots pounding. Red light glinted off their armor. They paused at the end of the hallway, sensing the human trap. Valera grabbed Elias' arm. "We cannot stop them here." He shook his head. "We don't need to stop them. We need to make them regret coming." She didn't understand until he activated the floor panels beneath the enemy. Sparks flew and two soldiers tripped into hidden pits filled with broken machinery. The remaining enemies snarled and charged. Elias fired with precision, dropping one, then another. He moved like a shadow, anticipating every attack. Valera gasped. He was not just fighting. He was commanding the battlefield. The turning point, by the time they reached the reactor core, the station was a war zone. Fires raged in corridors. Hull breaches hissed dangerously, letting in pockets of vacuum. The enemy had expected an easy target, a helpless princess and her human guard. Instead, they met resistance. Elias ducked behind a console as a Zarathi launched a plasma bolt. The energy grazed his shoulder, burning through armor, but he kept moving. Valera realized with growing awe that he did not fight for glory. He fought for survival. He fought for her. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Why are you still standing? You could be dead." Elias looked at her, a faint smirk on his bruised face. "Because if I fall, you fall, and I don't let that happen." The words struck her harder than any weapon. In all her life, she had never heard such devotion from any soldier, any being. And yet here it was, coming from a human, the enemy's fear. The Zarathi were relentless, but hesitation began creeping into their movements. They had expected a weak opponent, a human who would flee or surrender. Instead, they faced one man who moved with calm precision, even while bleeding, even while surrounded. One soldier froze mid-step, scanning the chaos. Another hesitated before leaping into the hallway. They whispered among themselves, voices trembling. Valera tilted her head, noticing their fear. They are afraid. Elias nodded without looking up. They should be. She had never seen this. She had seen fear in the defeated, in the cornered, but never respect. And now, for the first time, she understood. Humans earned respect through willpower, not strength, not weapons. The reactor gambit. Elias reached the reactor chamber. He checked the controls. The energy core hummed, dangerously unstable after the attacks. He turned to Valera. "This is the plan," he said. "I'll lure them in. You stay behind me. Keep the core stable while I handle the incoming." Valera swallowed. "This is madness." He shrugged. "You said I couldn't protect you. I'm proving you wrong." The first wave of enemies appeared in the chamber. Elias fired, ducking behind machinery as plasma blasts tore through the walls. One Zarathi soldier lunged at him with a massive blade. Elias rolled under the strike and countered with a precision shot to the chest. Another came from behind. He twisted, fired, and dropped it before it could reach Valera. She watched, heart pounding, as he danced through death, almost untouchable despite injuries. The price of protection. Suddenly, an energy bolt hit the floor where Elias had been standing a moment ago. Shards of metal and sparks flew everywhere. He was thrown back, landing hard on the reactor platform. Valera rushed to him. "Elias," he groaned, trying to rise. Blood stained his uniform and his breathing was heavy. "I'm fine," he whispered. "Go stabilize the reactor." Her hands shook, but she obeyed. As she adjusted the reactor controls, she realized what he had just done. He had taken every risk, every strike, every danger, and faced it himself to keep her safe. For the first time, she truly understood the human spirit. A moment of awe. After minutes that felt like hours, the enemies paused at the entrance of the reactor chamber. They had taken casualties and their morale was cracking. Valera looked at Elias. His chest heaved, his face pale, but he held his weapon ready. He had been hit multiple times. His uniform was torn. Sparks flew from the walls near him, but he didn't move back. She swallowed hard. You are incredible." He shook his head. "I'm just a human," he said quietly. "We don't give up." She studied him, eyes wide. "No, you are more than that. You are impossible." He gave a faint grin. "Impossible, yeah, humans like that word." The final push. The Zarathi soldiers surged forward, determined to overwhelm the chamber. But Elias had prepared traps along the floor, hidden explosives, and precise firing positions. Each enemy that came closer was met with sudden resistance. Some fell into pits, others were blasted back with controlled energy discharges. Valera couldn't move. She could only watch, heart racing, as the human she had doubted moments ago became the force that held the enemies at bay. And then something changed. The Zarathi commander appeared, a massive warrior, taller than any Elias had faced so far. Its eyes glowed like molten fire. It roared and charged, confident in its strength. Elias stepped forward. "Come on," he said. Valera's heart froze. The human, already injured, already bleeding, faced the commander without hesitation. He did not flinch. He did not run. He stood. The human spirit. The commander swung its massive weapon. Elias rolled to the side, fired, and struck a weak joint in the armor. The Zarathi staggered, surprised. Valera's mouth fell open. "How?" Elias fired again, hitting another weak point. The enemy roared in anger. Every attack it made, he anticipated, dodged, countered. It was more than skill. It was willpower. It was instinct. It was humanity in its purest form, refusing to fall, refusing to surrender, refusing to leave anyone behind. The commander hesitated. For the first time, it realized this human was different. Not strong, not fast, not powerful, but unbreakable. Valera's heart swelled with awe. So this is human strength. Elias turned to her, breathing heavily. Not strength, he said. Choice, sacrifice, refusing to quit. That's what makes humans unstoppable. The aftermath minutes later, the Zarathi retreated, unable to break through the traps and relentless defense. The station was scarred, the corridors burned, but the enemies had been driven back. Valera stood in silence, staring at Elias. She felt a strange mix of fear, respect, and admiration. "You protected me," she said softly. He shook his head. "We protected each other, that's what humans do." Her voice trembled. I thought you were weak." He smiled faintly, blood streaking his face. So did everyone else. For the first time in her life, the princess realized humans were not to be underestimated. Not for weapons, not for size, not for technology, but for their spirit. And she knew in that moment that the galaxy had no idea what it was up against.